Welcome back, everyone. Sheepdog Smokey, and just a day or so ago, we had yet another rambling video from Democrats. This one, Senator Schumer, again, demanding that they be obeyed when it comes to how to respond to coronavirus. I've kind of cut this into clips. Full disclaimer for YouTube and Twitter and everyone else. I have not edited this clip other than to cut it into pieces so that I can respond to it. I will be linking to the full unedited video so that that can be viewed and you can see it is not edited. Before we get into it, please make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so that you're kept abreast of all new content as it posts. For now, let's listen to what Senator Schumer has to ramble about this time.
Now, I'm going to be blunt. We are very worried about the president's incompetence and lack of focus on fighting the spread of coronavirus.
Right off the bat, he immediately uses buzzwords that the media will pick up on. Imagine in a day or so, we're seeing tweets from Acosta, Salisa, Cuomo, Schumer, Pelosi, Feinstein, Booker, Harris, Waters, all of them about incompetence, just as we always see them share that same buzzword, whether it be existential crisis or some other one.
We believe that his lack of focus is hamstringing efforts to address this public crisis and inflicting pain on the stock market.
Right there, you see it. They immediately jump from coronavirus to the economy. And that's going to be important later when we look at more of this rambling public address. They talk about the economy and how it's being hurt as if President Trump is somehow responsible for the coronavirus, while some of their puppets scream racism because someone points out that geographically this virus originated in the Wuhan province of China. Just a week or so, weeks ago, or maybe a month ago, they were all using the terms Wuhan coronavirus or Chinese coronavirus. I've said it in a previous video. If this virus originated in Birmingham, I would call it the British coronavirus. St. Petersburg, the Russian coronavirus. Cape Town, the South African coronavirus. Auckland, the New Zealand coronavirus. It doesn't matter. It is geography. It is not racist to point things like that out. It is logic. But of course, liberals are not able to use logic. They only are capable of using emotion. And this is going to come into play with the rest of this speech.
One word could describe thus far the administration's response: incompetence. The best way, we would tell the president, the best way to ensure economic security right now for the American people is to focus on fighting the illness and the spread of the illness. Ask any CEO today what they want most. I'll bet they tell you they want the coronavirus to be contained.
Notice that he says two things here. One, ask any CEO what they want. I'm going to guarantee the CEO is going to say they want their business to run smoothly. This will include the health of their employees. This will include being able to get resources for their company. This will include being able to deliver their product to their clients. This will include all of that. CEOs are employed to run a company and run it successfully so it makes a profit. They are going to say that, yes, they need their employees healthy. We're already seeing a lot of companies basically forcing remote work. You're going to work from home. My company is not yet, but who knows, that may come to play. But he also talks about containment, and that's very, very interesting. Let's look back at January. Early January is when the first case was reported in the Wuhan province of China, which is again why it is referred to as the Wuhan coronavirus or the Chinese coronavirus. Just 3 weeks later, President Trump imposed a travel ban on China. Instantly, Democrats from the House, the Senate, those not in office, their talking heads, and everyone, Trump's racist, he hates Chinese people. Now, just barely a month and a half later, they're calling for containment. Had President Trump not put in place that travel ban as fast as he did, we would have far more cases than we do now. If you listen to doctors, this is very much a cold virus, a flu virus. It is unique in unto itself. You can't take cold medicine to treat it. You need antibiotics. You can't take a flu shot to prevent it. We need to develop a vaccine. This has happened throughout history. Viruses mutate and they become their own thing. The travel ban has helped to contain it. Now they want containment, but they don't want the containment the president put in place. They want their own containment, which would have been to let it spread for another 7 weeks, and then they could have said the president didn't do enough. And they would be crowing and bleeding and demanding impeachment for putting people in danger. It's the same song and dance every time.
And you know what doesn't help the spread? You know what doesn't help stop the spread of the coronavirus? More corporate tax cuts. Here's what we're worried about: that the president will pay attention to the special interests instead of the people. Here's a headline from the Washington Post, just came out, 128. White House likely to pursue federal aid for shale companies hit by oil shock. Coronavirus downturn. We don't have enough tests.
This one is, again, a flip-flop in the same thing. He's whining about the economy, but when President Trump supposedly, and this is the Washington Post, I don't believe a word they say, but if the president is looking into tax cuts or tax abatements or tax relief for the shale industry, because oil is a big issue right now, that would help the economy because oil production in the U.S. would go up. Oil prices would go up. Oil company values would go up. Wages would not go down. Employment would not go down. In other words, the economy would not suffer at all and in fact would benefit from this. In this very speech, he said the president doesn't care about the economy, but when he even maybe proposes tax cuts, well, this is irresponsible. Don't worry about tax cuts. Don't worry about the economy, even though I said the economy. You need to do this instead. The president is not ignoring the coronavirus. There is a task force, which the vice president is leading, which is composed of people from all walks that have anything to do with fighting this. There are doctors, virologists, pharmacists, other experts that are going to be consulted, that are going to work with this, and they are going to focus on the virus. I read a story just today, I believe it was Oregon, but I'm not 100% sure, about a woman in the medical industry who developed a test and was told not to use it. Now, if I'm right that this was in Oregon, that is a very blue state. When she continued and used it and actually was able to successfully test people for this, she was targeted again. Notice, we don't have enough tests, but this test in a blue state was blocked, or they tried to, and then ultimately they were able to. While they scream we don't have tests, they put riders and pork and other crap bits into a funding bill to fund the response to coronavirus. President Trump proposed $2.5 billion to start. They all cried it's not enough, so they passed $8.5 billion, but it had Christmas ornaments all over it. That's not how you respond. You say, okay, you need this money for this, we don't think it's enough. Here's more than that for that one purpose. But Congress has been riddled with people who have their own interests at heart for decades. We get a bill to fund the coronavirus, but in doing so, you also have to fund this crap project in my state. And it is not what we need right now.
People can't determine if they're ill or not. They have to wait days, and they're concerned with the oil companies that pierce the shale and get oil. Is that incredible?
Again, Washington Post. Washington Post is one of the front runners of Russia, 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 and stormy, 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 and this and this and this and that and the other. They have hated the president since he declared he was running as a Republican. And they have run with lie after lie after lie after lie. How is it they know what the president is contemplating? He hasn't done it yet. I've heard nothing from any of the sources I trust saying that this is even being contemplated. This has a great possibility of being the fevered dream of some WAPO opinionated person who says, let's try and make Trump look bad. Again, oil is an issue right now. Russia is trying to convince OPEC not to produce, and other things are going all over in the industry. So offering some tax relief to U.S.-based oil companies would help the economy, because it would, at the very minimum, lessen the impact of this situation on the oil companies. They would be able to do more than they would without it. He also talks about tests. Notice that the only thing other than this that we've really heard from the Democrats is Bernie saying once there's a vaccine, it should be free. Well, the CDC has already loosened some restrictions, as has the FDA on testing. There are tests happening. There are insurance companies that are completely covering the entire cost of the test. I've even seen reports where there are drive-up tests. You drive up, give your sample, and then you are told the results. This is not a situation where every single person in America needs to rush to the hospital to get tested. That's exactly what the Democrats would want, because it would be a public panic. They would be able to say, we need martial law to control this. They would be able to say the president is causing a panic by telling people to run and get tested. But since he's not doing that, they do it and say, we need more tests, we need more tests. If you are asymptomatic and you have had no contact with anyone who has had contact with a coronavirus infected person or is infected, you've had no contact, you're asymptomatic, you do not need to get tested. I have children in my life. Two of them one is attending public school in a nearby city. My nephew, who lives with my parents very close to me, is homeschooled. So when we hear about a lice problem or a flu problem or this, that, or the other in the local public schools in our town, we don't rush off to get tested because we are not having any contact with those teachers, administrators, or students, because my nephew doesn't attend those. When my sister hears about it, though, since her daughter does attend public school, she does talk to her doctor. This is what should happen. It should not be Democrats crying, we need more tests. It should be doctors who are saying, this is very similar to the cold. If you begin to think you're having symptoms, see your doctor. If you are not exhibiting any symptoms, then don't panic. But the Democrats can't live without panic in the country.
Let me tell President Trump what does stop the spread of coronavirus. Steady, smart, scientific, and competent leadership from the government. President Trump and his administration should be putting people before corporations, and they should be focused on taking appropriate steps to keep the American people and their economic security safe.
Again, completely ignoring that we do have a task force headed by the Vice President that is specifically tasked with responding to this coronavirus. We do have scientists and other medical personnel working with that team to respond to the coronavirus. We have the CDC working on it. We have the FDA working with those who are working to develop a vaccine and testing and treatment. He never once addresses the simple fact that very recently China, in their state media, threatened to cut off all shipments of pharmaceuticals to the U.S. to directly impact the health of Americans. For decades, we've had politicians who are power hungry shipping things like medical production, medical medicine and medical equipment production to China. They produce the masks. They produce the antibiotics. We don't. It's something like 95+% of what we use is produced in the very country this vaccine originated in. Yet they don't address that fact of China directly threatened to withhold medication we need from us. They instead attack the president, saying, basically, you need to ignore everything but what we tell you to focus on. The President of the United States is not there to focus on one issue. He is there to have people around him that are experts in many different areas. He has put the Vice President in charge of a task force to respond to coronavirus. That task force includes the people that need to be on it. He is briefed by them regularly. He works with them regularly. He doesn't micromanage them. And that's what the Democrats want. Mostly, in my mind, so they can crow that the president is ignoring everything but coronavirus, and he needs to be working on other things as well. When the president multitasks, he's distracted. When the president doesn't multitask, he must multitask. I've said it before, I'll say it again. If President Trump walked out of the White House over to the Washington Mall and walked the length of the reflecting pool on the surface of the water, the very next headline would be President Trump can't swim, afraid of water. If President Trump announced, I have 100% on my own developed a cure for all disease, I just released it, we will never see disease again, the next headline would be Donald Trump puts doctors out of work. There is nothing this man can do that will ever be good enough. Right now, Gavin Newsom is the only Democrat actually saying President Trump has responded and delivered on his promises regarding this one single issue. And that's because the Supreme Court said, oh, if a state is not enforcing federal law, you can withhold federal funds. Newsom needs those billions coming into his state because people are leaving in droves and taking their income with them. So he has to stop some of the rhetoric. I can pretty much guarantee no Democrat will ever talk about the fact that Gavin Newsom praised Donald Trump on this. They will continue to spread their lies, their rhetoric, and their fear everywhere they can. When, as I've seen many people who are in the medical industry have predicted, this is not the pandemic the WHO and the DNC say it's going to be. When we don't have 150 million dead in the next 2 weeks, they're going to say it was all them doing it. The president didn't help us, but we responded. By doing what? Passing a War Powers Act that violates the Constitution, which will be vetoed. By trying to say you can't ban travel from countries where infection rates are astronomical. By demanding the president be impeached for not being impeachable. The only minimal sliver of a silver lining in this scenario is the sheer number of people who are being woken up to what the Democratic Party is. And it's a party of tyrants. These are the people who read 1984, Brave New World, Fahrenheit 451, and said, these are great ideas, we got to do this. These are the people who have sat in Congress, most of them for decades, getting richer and richer and richer. On a salary of $180,000 roughly, or less, because many of them started before it got this high, per year, having to maintain a home in their home state and Washington, D.C., travel between those homes. How does someone have a net worth of millions? The only answer is corruption. Right now, Senator Schumer is worried that Donald Trump will not cause a problem, so he's saying Donald Trump is causing a problem. When it doesn't happen, Schumer and Pelosi and the rest of them will crow. See what we did? It wasn't the president. We did it. That's the Democratic rule number one. Take credit for everything good, blame someone else for everything bad. California's been run for decades by Democrats. There's homelessness everywhere. They have resurgences of typhus. They've legalized public urination and defecation. They've said we're not going to even respond if theft is under a certain limit. And when their state begins to just implode on itself, it's those evil Republicans. They're not giving us enough money. I said this when the wildfires were happening, and President Trump talked about forest management and ground clearing. I've been a firefighter. If there is a forested area, you do not want underbrush of leaves and grass and sticks that have fallen and been cut and been ripped up lying on the ground. That is tinder, is all it is tinder waiting for a spark to start the fire. If California was not hamstringed by Democrats' intent on bridges to nowhere and failed high-speed rails, their National Forest Service would have had the money to go in and, yes, use a rake to gather stuff up and then use large equipment to haul it away. Imagine if you just collected the fallen branches, what could have been done with it? That is good, as opposed to leaving it there to burn when a homeless person starts a fire. That's exactly what this is. They're not responding to anything. They're not proposing any inkling of a plan They're simply using taglines. We need more tests. Don't cut taxes. Don't do this. Do what we say. If it blows up, they'll say, listen, you should have listened to us and done nothing. If it doesn't, they'll crow. It's well beyond time that we tell all of them, and I do mean all 535 members, because even those that I do like have been there too long. It's time we tell them, you're done. Go home. And we tell the incoming group, you have 2 terms each. That's it. When your 2 terms are up, you go home. No lifetime pension, a full salary. How many people have retired in the last 20 years that are still drawing their full salary every year to do TV interviews and write stupid books? The core of the problem is Congress. And at that problem's core is the Democratic Party. They are right now weeping and moaning over coronavirus and how it's racist to say where it started, and how President Trump isn't personally focusing on this one issue, how the economy is suffering, and then when he proposes tax cuts, that's not how you do it. In their mind, you help the economy by seizing power. And they're not going to be happy until the world is burning. And then they'll blame somebody else for it. I've talked long enough. This has been a longer one than normal. I do apologize. As always, please remember to like the video, subscribe, turn on notifications so that you can be a part of the channel and a part of the conversation. Please remember to be civil. We're not here to scream and yell at each other. We're here to debate and discuss. Also, please don't forget to share the video to help get to those thresholds, the 500, 1,000, and 1,500 threshold for subscribers for the giveaways. Until next time, everyone have a wonderful day.